day of the year, the day after the Super Bowl. But we do have a lot to talk about in the NFL. We have a lot to talk about in sports. Sean Salisbury coming on in a minute. And then after that, Ryan and Sacktown as the Kings continue on their road trip. They're in Indiana. That game starts in an hour. Tyrese Halliburton is going to play. De'Aaron Fox is not. He's not with the team for personal reasons. So all of that coming up on the show today as we get you ready for the weekend. And joining us from H-Town, Houston, Texas, the guy that looks like he's getting ready to go snow skiing, Sean Salisbury. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. Doing good, bud. Yeah, Texas, uncharacteristic cold lately, and I just got done having a 90-pound bully walk me around the doggone all around the neighborhood. So I'm doing good, man. How about you?
I'm doing very well. Just from following your social media post, you absolutely love what the Texans did with DeMeco Ryans. Tell everyone why.
Yeah, Grant, whenever an assistant that's never been a head coach, or even nowadays with a head coach, Sean Payton in Denver, it's like a first round, or your quarterback you draft in the first round, right? It's a crapshoot. You go with the best available that you think, and you let it rip and give him an opportunity to build a team and hope it works. I mean, that's really the way it is, because if there was guarantees, then we'd all be gambling on it. But the truth is if there's an assistant coach that in this cycle is about as close to a guarantee that's been prepared for this, Tim. I haven't seen Houston this excited outside of baseball since Watson came over. This true story, Grant. I'm being honest now. The buzz here, you and I have been doing stuff together for a long time. The buzz here, the positive buzz. I mean, I'm talking about there's even people that are warming up to the ownership after Cal McNair. They got rid of Jack Easterby. They moved on from the coach. They hired a guy. It's rare that you get a fan favorite that's the right coach. You know what I'm saying? You get a guy that the fans love, but it's also the right choice when they come together. And this one did, the popular guy, and he still got the gig. I believe all along, even when Sean Payton was in the mix, that it was him that they wanted, and they were going to interview all these other guys to find out if somebody wowed you. Otherwise, this was the guy they had their eye on because he's a former player here, held in the highest regard, and there's a lot of boxes he checks, but two in particular, Grant, everywhere he's been, people around him get better. They just do. They elevate their game, and there's accountability, but he's a great leader. And those are that's DNA stuff. You can get better by reading these books that I try to read all the time behind me, leadership books, but when you walk into a room and everybody is engaged and everybody is like magnetically attracted to what you do and listening, hanging on every word, players, media, that's him. So I believe he's ready for it. He's prepared. He's energetic. It'll be 180 degrees different what you've seen now. They got to hire the right staff and then go get these players because you know how it is. If you got no talent, the coach gets fired. But if you get both, he can build something. I think he's a patient guy too, which he's going to have to be.
I'm a Giants fan, so I saw what happened with that franchise when they hired the right coach. I'm not saying DeMeco Ryans is going to take the Texans to the playoffs, but my point is, trust me, I understand how much coaching means, but I also understand being a Giants fan that sometimes we put too much on a head coach. I think the staff that the coach puts around him is as important. Again, I look at the Giants, what they did with their offensive, defensive coordinators and how that helped Daniel Jones and how Martindale changed the defense around. So to me, it encompasses everything, Sean.
Yeah, the coaches that are assistants that become head coaches, coordinators become head coaches. We know all of them, the landscape. They earned being a head coach by the way they did their X's and O's and commanded their offense or defense, right? That's one thing. Now take it to the next level because you wonder, leadership's one thing with your group. Then when you got to stand over a whole team and get buy-in. Brian Dable got buy-in. And Grant, I've been preaching this for years. I go, when I was on TV and doing shows like this or my radio show for months, I've been saying, listen, everybody's always caught up in the head coach, which is important. He sets the foundation for the standard of what we're going to do. It's not just what you're going to do. It's where you draw a line in concrete, say what we're not going to accept and what we're not going to do. We're not going to show up late. We're going to be accountable. And if there's no buy-in, it's not these guys that are going, then you'll have to find somewhere else to play.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not in a bad way. It's just that we're doing things different here. And it's important. I think in any organization, you saw it with the Giants, Doug Peterson in Jacksonville. Then you get to the players part, Grant, and I've preached it just like you do. If we get, let's say Bryce Young's the quarterback they draft with the second pick.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you now that it's not going to be DeMeco Ryans that's going to be the reason he's a franchise quarterback. Now, DeMeco will hire the right. Now, it started with him and filtered down by the people he hired. It's going to be the offensive coordinator and the quarterback, of course, his teammates, but the guys who are shoulder to shoulder, hour upon hour, sitting in the meeting room. Head coach doesn't go into the meeting rooms unless he's calling the defensive plays. He'll spend time in the defensive meeting room, which that's fine. But Denny Green never sat in our quarterback meetings, and I love Denny. And Denny responsible for getting you there. Then it's, I've empowered you to go coach the guy. You bring out the best in him, and I'll coach the coaches. So it's a trickle-down effect. I'm going to tell you, I understand the coach gets paid the most, and that's why, Grant, I've always had a problem when only head coaches get in the Hall of Fame. I'm going to tell you, how in the world can you tell me Tom Moore, who's still coaching in Tampa, he's in his 80s, Coach Terry Bradshaw and Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, there shouldn't be a wing for assistant coach in the damn Hall of Fame.
It's a great point.
They make impact. They just do. Head coaches, no doubt. But I can go through the list. I mean, think about Alex Gibbs, the offensive line coach for all those years that they were running the zone in Denver. I mean, Coach McNally, coaching Anthony Munoz. I mean, the list goes. Dick
how about a guy you speak so highly of, and I know he was a head coach for a small period of time. But how about Norv Turner?
No question. Well, if you're going offense, he's one of the 10 best coordinators of all time.
Exactly.
And he withstood the test of time. Now, head coach, he had his struggles, but as a coordinator, people swear by him. So there should be a place. And so with this, it's if the quarterback meets his goals and dreams and leads and gets them where they want to go in any franchise, the head coach will say, yeah, head coach quarterback. Yep. But in truth, unless it's Sean Payton calling the plays, it's the quarterback coach and coordinator who are going to develop him with players. The head coach is responsible for making sure the guy he hired is really good in the building and a great teacher. And so that's how it goes. And I preach it for a long time. You are exactly right. Great head coach, average staff, average players gets fired. Average head coach, great staff, great players gets a contract extension. Great head coach, great staff, great players. You win Super Bowls and end up in the Hall of Fame.
Are you surprised that Sean Payton took the Denver job? The point I'm trying to make is it appears that he could have waited and listen, I know he's getting a boatload of money. So I understand that, that also is a driving force. That ownership has a ton of money, but it's not the best situation right now when you look at the quarterback, unless, Sean, you think that Sean Payton can rejuvenate Russell Wilson and make him the guy that he was 2 years ago. They don't have a lot of draft capital. They play in the same division with Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. So are you surprised that Payton went to Denver?
I think I'm not, Grant. I'm going to tell you why. I know we say, well, he could have just gone back to broadcasting and waited another year. Well, what if 2 jobs open or 3 jobs and he doesn't want to go to some place that say Chicago opened up? It won't, but you get my point. And it's not what you want or the quarterback you want. Then you're into the 3rd year, and you know how this cycle goes. Like right now, all these years, Bill Cowher's been out. Bill Cowher was a great coach.
Yeah.
Bill Cowher would not be in high demand as an NFL head coach right now. They wouldn't be standing in line to sign him after all these years away. Gruden was the aberration. 10 years gone, came back, Raider organization. But think about it. It gets to a point, you start to read, not that Bill couldn't coach. I'm talking about the perception from a distance. So if you're Sean Payton, the further you remove, now 1 year's great, 2 years, but you start to get out and you say, I still haven't got the job I want. 4 years into it, you're like, I've been away. People start to say, well, is a game passing him by, even though it's not true. So I think that has part of it, and the competitive juices flow. Grant, you've been in TV. I've been in TV. Listen, and I love that competition when the red light goes on. You ain't getting the same competition you are down there matching wits against the other smart coaches and players on the field. And the money came into play, but here's why. Grant, if I'd have told you 18 months ago that Russ Wilson's going to get traded and he's not finished his career in Seattle, and he's going to be one of the worst 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the league on a Super Bowl caliber defense with Cortland Sutton, with 2 wide receivers that are high picks and good players, you would have looked at me and said, with the money, with the Walmart family, with all that money, right? You would have said, Sean, you're out of your mind. That's a nice hot take. And here we are.
Yeah.
And the biggest weakness on that football team, Grant, last year, you know what it was? Russell Wilson's performance.
Of course.
So I think if you're Sean Payton, you say, listen, Would I rather try to fix Russell Wilson or a guy who's a professional, although he had a bad year, or Kyler Murray in Arizona, who I know doesn't study like I want to do? And the narrative people, you can't give that job away right now in Arizona.
Great point.
You got to go to it if you're Sean Payton. Say, listen, the guy's put up Hall of Fame numbers. That had to be the aberration, and the ego kicks in. Hell, I'm big enough ego to think I can go make Russell Wilson a better quarterback, better than he was. That's how I feel. And Payton's been doing. He's a genius at it. So it's worth the risk at $20 million a year for a team that had a top 5 defense, Grant. So I get why he did it. The ironic thing is, I would have never thought Sean would take a job where he was the third choice. Think about that. DeMeco Ryans and Jim Harbaugh.
Yep.
Although I don't look at him like that. But
yeah,
Sean will be a difference maker, and they got their offense is going to get better than it was at this, late this year from Hackett to Sean Payton.
But I also look, and listen, I understand coaches don't think like this. So I'm talking to you outside of the way Sean Payton would think. But again, you're in a division where you have to play Patrick Mahomes twice a year and Justin Herbert twice a year. And, oh, yeah, by the way, both those guys are young.
Yep, part of the reason, Grant, he's got a defense in place. They're pretty damn good. So you go and you say, okay, we are top 5, 6, 7 all year long. And think how much better they may have been, Grant, if they weren't on the field all the damn time with Denver getting off the field, not making any plays. So if they can continue that, what Sean's thinking is, let me split with those two cats, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me go. I'm good enough to coach with Andy, and I'm good enough to coach with Staley. Let me go match wits with them. Russell will find himself. And now, because remember, Grant, you and I even talked about this, the best quarterback division going into this year that we thought maybe starting quarterback division of all time, based on numbers and what they've done and potential, was this division here, the AFC West. Yep. Then Carr, benched up and down. Russell Wilson was bad. Herbert had moments, but he's going to be a great player. And then there's Mahomes. So you never know what's going to happen. Hell, we may turn around. Russ Wilson may have found it be the comeback player of the year. So I think that's what Sean's counting on. And there's another guy, staff-wise, got to get the right people in. No question about it.
All right, Miami, Vic Fangio, now going to handle their defense. You look at the Dolphins, and the biggest question mark now is their quarterback with a soft head. Tua is out of concussion protocol. But, I mean, really, when you think about their future and how good they can be, right now it centers around the uncertainty of what happens to the next hit that Tua takes. But let's talk about Fangio going to run their defense.
This is a phenomenal hire, regardless of, you mentioned Norv Turner on the offensive side.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Vic as a head coach didn't turn out the way that people wanted him to. But I can tell you, Grant, from the time I got out of the league and been covering football, and Vic's been a position coach or a coordinator, and I've had conversations with him about building defenses in the past when I was at ESPN. He gets it. There's a reason why the guy's making head coaching money for the rookie head coach. What's he, $4.5 million?
$4.5 million a year.
That's right. And when you look around the league, and
that's
you've got
unheard of.
4 teams bidding on a guy that says, you pick where you want to go, dude.
Yep.
We'll wait on you. We're going to wait till you're ready to decide.
Yep.
And he chose Miami, which they'll be better. Matter of fact, they got better the second he put his name on that contract. Well, he'll put it on, I think, after the Super Bowl. But they immediately got better. Now, Grant, if I told you that the Miami Dolphins, with their group coming back, Mike McDaniel, another year now in the system and bringing this together, now you add this coordinator.
Yep.
And I told you Tua was going to play the season and that he was going to play like he did the first 9 games. We'd be thinking, Buffalo, you better strap it on and be ready to play this year.
Yep.
So I'm pulling for Tua. I think Mike likes him a lot, or they would have gone out, or they put it this way. If they jump into the Derek Carr fray or Jimmy Garoppolo fray or try to trade for Aaron Rodgers, you'll know exactly how they feel about Tua and his health and his future.
Great point.
If they stay away from it, that means Mike McDaniel believes Tua can be a player. And the 49ers have never hinged over the years from Montana to Young to Garoppolo on. I mean, we know that Kaepernick had a strong arm, but that's franchise, and now Mike McDaniel there has never hinged on, we got to have a guy who can throw it a country mile. They hinge on accuracy, getting the ball out, and understanding the defensive scheme and throwing the ball on time. You can win with Tua. They proved that this year when he was healthy.
This is an interesting question. Cody is a big-time Broncos fan, and I want to go back to them. He's right. Their offensive line is terrible. And that's not something that you fix in 1 year. It's a process. So that is going to be part of the deal with Russell Wilson is, that offensive line is an issue. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and Russell didn't help them this year by long yardage situations. If you watch Russ, the indecision, the lack of decision making and his indecisiveness in the pocket, you watched his head watch the rush. So we've known Russell Wilson used to be able to save average offensive lines by movement. Now, I don't know what the hell happened to him this year where he decided, I'm not going to move and extend the pocket very much. That helps because when you do that, you get passive-aggressive pass rushes because they're afraid of overcommitting. So it's a fine line. And the run game's got to get back to Denver. With Sean Payton, I think it will. But the key here, listen, your run game and your offensive line will improve if the guy under center gets better and has a better grasp of it. But he's exactly right. For Denver to contend and be a playoff team that moves on in January, Russ has got to play MVP-ish. They've got to get back to when Mike Shanahan knew how to teach the run game there. And that offensive line better get a little bit more physical or they're going to get bullied in that division, even though the defenses aren't like, oh, my gosh, there's some good players in the division. We know that. But the quarterbacks will eat your defense alive, even if they are good, if you keep giving them possessions. You can't give Mahomes and Herbert the ball that many times, and you got to keep Russ Wilson upright. But he's got to get better and help them.
All right, it's a week from Sunday. As we speak right now, I'm leaning towards Philadelphia for this reason. I still think they're underappreciated by many, and I think they're getting overshadowed because they're going against Patrick Mahomes. But you and I have talked about this on a very consistent basis. I love the way Jalen Hurts plays. I love everything about him, and this is going to be his moment, in my opinion, to elevate himself in terms of the perception. I know people think that Jalen Hurts is good, but there's that but attached to it. This is a good this will be the opportunity for him to remove that word but.
I think there is, and I think that people aren't paying attention. If they aren't, they'll look like last week. Say he threw for 125 yards. They didn't need to throw the football.
So what? They had a conservative game plan.
Right, exactly. I think Hurts took the step this year that you are going to see, Grant, next year when they redo his deal. He's going to be in the $40 to $43 million range. He just is. They believe it. I've seen enough of winner and poise and what he does for that team to tell me that as he continues to expand his passing decisions in game, and he'll get better, that this guy, that they believe that he is their decade-long for the next 10-year quarterback. I agree.
Hey, if Dak Prescott is worth $40 million, he's worth 43 to 45.
Hurts is a better player. Hurts is a better player. And more poised. And I'm going to tell you one thing that will not happen in this Super Bowl, regardless. That dude that's under center will never lose his poise in the game at any point in time. No matter if he's playing good or bad, you won't be able to tell the difference by his body language and his facial expressions. I love him. I think I don't think he's a good player. I think he's on the verge of being a great player. And I think they believe big time in him. Now, that being said, I think there's some hidden gems in this. The obvious, Hurts and Mahomes and Kelsey. You better get an answer for Kelsey, but Philadelphia's defense isn't exactly chopped liver. They're pretty damn good. Grant, they get after the quarterback so good. So the offensive line, defensive front seven, big, Chiefs versus Eagles, right? I'm watching Chris Jones, and can he wreck a game like we've seen Philadelphia's down guys do it? He's capable of doing it inside out. But you know what I'm looking for? If you're going to tee off, because what is their thought? Grant, if you're my defense coordinator in Philadelphia, your first thought is what? Don't contain Mahomes and Kelsey, and they can't dominate the game, right?
Right. Yes.
So now think about this. Their running game is underrated, Grant. We know Philadelphia can run it with Hurts and that.
Yep.
It's the run game with Pacheco and McKinnon. They can run the ball. And so he's a big physical kid. I'm just going to tell you, my gut tells me that he's going to be a hidden – that guy that every Super Bowl there's that one Dexter Jackson, that somebody that's not supposed to be an MVP type becomes an MVP type.
Yep.
I feel like if they'll give him 15 to 20 touches in the game, that Pacheco can be a huge factor in the game for a guy who was, a 6th, 7th round pick, and now he's running like he's a friggin' bell cow back. So keep an eye on that. I think Philly's the better team, but I do still think that until somebody proves to me you can stop Mahomes and Kelsey from taking it over in the passing game, and while you're thinking about that, now you got to deal with this big fella in the backfield. I'm leaning towards Kansas City, although if they played 10 times, I think it's 6-4 Philly.
You know what? You know what you just said that resonated with me? When I think of the Kansas City Chiefs and you're talking about Pacheco, They're the one franchise that always seems to be able to replace a back who was really good, and you almost forget that that back played there. You know what I mean? It's amazing how Andy Reid and that organization has been able to utilize the running back position and replace really good running backs all the time. Probably better than anyone in the league.
Right, Greg. You know what it is too? When you're talking about him, even if you're a hardcore football guy, you'll go down the list and say, "Oh yeah, who was the guy in the Super Bowl 5 years ago with Kansas?" You'll go down the name, you know the name, but you can't quite recall it yet. Right. They've been impactful, right? Because Mahomes is so smothering with how good he is, right?
Right.
And I'll tell you another thing about it, Grant, and it's similar. 49ers with Kyle Shanahan. Now they got McCaffrey and Debo Samuel, but think how many Mostert, guy after guy after guy. They just keep running it. That's a team. And you go back when Denver had it, and his dad, after Terrell Day, it was just another guy. 1,000. Mike Anderson, 1,000 yard, 1,200 yard, 1,400 yard. Well, Andy does it well, and I can't begin to tell you. Some guys run to throw, run to set up the pass. Kansas City will throw just like Todd Monken does at Georgia. Throw to set up the run, then bell cow knock your ass off. So I'm just keeping an eye on you. Watch that position because Philly is going to tee off on the quarterback. You may get some gaping holes and step throughs there to get to the second level if they're trying to go get Mahomes and you run some draws and a little bit of little bubble screen stuff or get the guy to the back in the flat, which is an extension of the run. Keep an eye on that.
All right. When you and I talked on Monday, I asked you specifically about Tom Brady, and you were adamant that he could go to a good team and be the difference on that team. So I don't want to put words in your mouth, based on how you thought and what you envisioned for him. You're surprised he announced his retirement then, correct?
I am. I just did on the competitive side. And great. I did. I said he and now I don't believe there's any chance Rodgers retires same years. I think now he's playing for sure.
No way.
But I was adamant because, Grant, like I said, I saw it and I start to envision him in Miami, him in, whether it was San Francisco or somewhere else with one last run but we saved one last run 3 or 4 years in a row. But judging from a bad season that's 25 touchdowns, 9 picks, and 4,700 yards, I'm like, he could still play. Get him the right guys. May not be able to carry it like he used to, but he can still play. He's okay. Grant, if you had to line up 10 quarterbacks in the NFL, all on good teams, wouldn't you still pick Brady?
Honestly, Sean?
For 1 year. I'm talking about they all have the talent of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah.
Top 10?
Yes.
Top 10.
Yes.
So if he's top 10, which will be 46 years old, we know the guy can play. But Grant, I don't think if you said you could wave a magic wand and Tom would come back and September would start and he could start for a good team, I think he'd still play. I think he'd say, man, my competitive, take time off. I don't have to go through. It's the off-season grind, the grind of going and getting yourself ready and hoping everybody has the same commitment you do. So I am surprised. This one's for good. He's not coming back. But I would have bet money on a futures that Brady does come back. And this is the first time I actually thought that he could retire. But after I watched this season, I thought, man, I don't know if he's got a bitter taste in his mouth about the way they played. But what else does he have to prove? Nothing. And he's going to go and try to take his competitive juices and put it into the broadcasting. So I was a little surprised because I don't think he can still play. I damn well know he can still play.
Isn't it interesting how things can change in an instant? I'm talking about the 49ers. They now enter this offseason similarly to the way they entered last offseason, with a great deal of uncertainty with the quarterback position. It's unbelievable to me.
And with a roster that has Super Bowl written all over it.
That's right. Exactly.
They are friggin' loaded. And you're sitting there saying, you got to be kidding me. Again? Right. We got another injury. We're on our 4th quarterback. Got all these great players. And now Jimmy's going to leave like he was supposed to last year. And Trey Lance is going to be the guy. Yep. And now Trey Lance gets hurt. Now Brock Purdy comes in, plays great. Purdy gets hurt. Now it's 6 to 9 months, or if it's shorter than 9 months, God bless him. That's a bonus and a blessing. If it's longer, now coming off an injury, now he has to come out, Trey Lance, and re-earn his job. And now you got to go find 2 guys, a backup and a third-string quarterback, to ensure that with that roster, a guy can carry you. Because, Grant, these windows don't stay open long. The Patriots or the Steelers, that stuff's the aberration. I'm talking about where McCaffrey and Debo and Kittle and Fred Warner and Greenlaw and Bosa are all the same damn team, and Trent Williams. So it's Super Bowl time to pounce. The question is, can that position with Trey Lance or somebody else do what they thought they were going to have done this year? And they were doing it with a third-string quarterback who had to fight to make a team in training camp. It's eerily similar, just a different name, but it's right back to the original name that they traded for in the first place in Trey Lance, or traded up to get.
Sean, I want to switch gears on you. You've been in a lot of locker rooms as a player. I've been in many locker rooms as an announcer, working for a team for 32 years. And talent is great. But I've always thought, you see it, I see it. Talent, I've seen a lot of great talent wasted because of an individual's personality. And I'm well aware that Kyrie Irving won a championship years ago with the Lakers. I don't know why any general manager in the NBA right now, after the demand that he made, that he wants to be traded before next week's deadline, I don't know why anyone would say, you know what? I want Kyrie Irving on my team. I wouldn't want anything to do with this guy. I think he's a disgrace. I think he's an embarrassment. I don't think if you're a teammate of his, you can ever count on him. You don't know if he's going to show up. You don't know where his head is. He's a big-time distraction. I personally, if I'm in a locker room and I'm a teammate, there's one thing I want above anything else. I want to be able to look to my left and look to my right and say to myself, I know I can count on that guy. Right. When the shit hits the fan, when we need him, I don't have to worry about whether he's going to be on AWOL or whether he's going to be flipping out. Or I need to count on that guy. How could anyone count on Kyrie Irving?
Well, find me a sustained great player in the NBA over the course of time. Not a guy that won and has flashes of brilliance. Listen, well, to answer your question, you know exactly why they keep bringing him on, because he's friggin' supremely talented.
Yes, he is.
As gifted of anybody who's ever played the point. As gifted. I'm not saying he's the best. As gifted. But
I agree.
Grant, you hit it right. Listen, all the things, the negatives about him, the positive is he's a friggin' great player. But
yes,
the one thing that you said that is the worst trait, I can't rely on you, dude. And there's nothing more in sports that sucks the life and energy out of a team than a guy who's that gifted, or that isn't that gifted but is a disruption, because he just brings everybody down and forces locker rooms and teams to be divided.
I've seen it.
Go there, it's like going into an alley fight and you think you got your buddy and there's 5-on-2 and your buddy turns and sprints out the backside of the alley. It's like, come on, motherfucker. You can't run away on me. I got to be right here talking about your buddy that you'd go back the next day and say, dude, where were you?
Yeah.
With him on the basketball court. I'm just sitting there thinking, can you imagine if he had Magic Johnson or Michael Jordan's approach with his skill set?
Oh my God!
I'm just using old school guys, or Larry Bird, or now the Steph Currys, whoever you want to put that is going to bust ass every friggin' day. That some guys are far less talented than this cat. I mean, he's one of the 10 most gifted guys in the league right now. But I also think, Grant, people are afraid that this player empowerment, that we want to do everything to roll over. If you're Brooklyn, doesn't there come a point in time, and I don't mean it against him, say, no, fuck no. Oh, you're going to threaten that you're just going to leave in free agency? Okay. Yeah. We'll just try to win a championship this year. Hopefully you'll show up. If you don't, then you're insubordinate and you just won't get paid. See, I don't know why. Well, that gets in the way of winning a championship, but does it? I mean, with his talent, but if there's somebody that's such a disruption, you're not winning a championship anyway. They're not good enough if he's that big a disruption.
No.
And not playing every day. You can't rely on him to win an NBA championship. Milwaukee and Philly, those teams aren't going away. Boston, you know what I'm saying? In the East, they're just not. So, listen, I want to like the guy because there's some things about him that I'm like, as the course of his career, I'm saying, damn, it makes a little sense there. But then when he does this, there's nothing more chicken shit in pro sports or in any sport, high school, than a teammate you cannot count on. That's about as bad as a guy like you leave your locker. I'm not saying Kyrie did this, but anybody, you leave your locker open and your wallet's in there and a teammate steals it. Basically, you're doing the same thing by not showing up. You're taking food off our table because we need you. Okay, you want traded, great. But Grant, just because they want traded, I don't need to grant shit if, in fact, I don't like the deal. But quit this player empowerment.
He's not as bad as Antonio Brown, but think of all the teams that fucking wish they had not, gone out and kissed his ass, over that 3 or 4 year period. Oh, come play for us. Oh, sorry, get out of here,
It's already filtered down into the college coaches recruiting high school kids. they're walking on eggshells. Well, what if the guy we recruited leaves? He's a 4-star. Now Saban's like, okay, I'll just replace his ass with another guy. And they keep winning. So I love the players involved. You don't go get I'm usually on the player side, but there comes a point in time when I really don't care how good you are. Because if you're a 9.8 talent, but you got a 2-cent commitment, I don't fucking need you. And you're not going to do anything for my franchise. And you're not putting another ring on my, and he played great when LeBron and him won the NBA title.
Yeah, right.
But guess what? That year they weren't winning it without each other. Take LeBron
and they weren't
away,
winning it. They weren't winning it if Draymond Green had not gotten ejected in Game 5 and gotten suspended for Game 5 when they were down 3-1 too. So factor that in.
Right, and we do got to give Kyrie Irving because he knocked down some shots in that series.
He was great.
But
he was great.
If LeBron's not there, guess what he's not doing? Winning that thing, and vice versa that year. But you're not winning a championship with guys that are kind of in. I'm sorry, and it's unfortunate because I love watching when the guy's on the court playing 35 minutes. Boy, is he a joy to watch because he is a gifted dude, man. But if he gets wherever they go and he gets traded to, I'm just going to tell you, dysfunction will start to kick in.
Oh, boy. Wow. Real quickly, we talked about LeBron. What he's doing at age 38, night in, night out, is absolutely unbelievable. Sean, I'm going to share a story with you. I announced LeBron's very first game. His very first game was in Sacramento, and I worked with Jerry Reynolds, who is a former coach, former general manager, and Jerry and I did the games for well over 20 years. And Jerry made a comment during that game. Now, think about this. During that game, first game ever for LeBron James, he said, I'm telling you, I really believe that if this guy does not have injuries, we are going to be maybe talking about him when it's all said and done as the greatest player in the history of the game. How about that comment in the middle of his first game?
How's that for evaluation and knowing what you're looking at, right? Early on, and here we are, and it's been debatable for a handful of years. Now, some of us have a guy we like more, like Michael Jordan, LeBron, some like Kobe, Abdul-Jabbar, but he's never out of the team picture, okay? No. So, Grant, I'm fascinated. There's been guys that are great, the GOATs in their sport, and he's obviously in that conversation. But I don't know, and I've been around some. Julius Peppers was a freak on the field, an athlete. Great athletes in all sports. I'm not sure we've ever been blessed. I don't care how you feel about LeBron and the Lakers, and I'm just talking the player. I don't know if we've ever been blessed with a bigger specimen who's withstood the test of time physically while running up. He must have covered 8 million miles on the court and is still playing like that, the pounding like he did when he was 17 and 18 years old.
Unbelievable.
And smarter. And his basketball IQ, I don't care, is through the friggin' roof.
It's amazing.
It is. He's the best specimen. Wilt Chamberlain was the specimen. Now, when I tell you that LeBron's a bigger specimen than Wilt, when you talk about running the court, it's hard to argue. And we've had a lot of them. This dude, just when I think he's done and going to walk away from it, Grant, and he's going to get into the celebrity, entertainment, movies and all that, he comes out and is knocking down 26, 28, 30, 60, 63 points away from breaking Abdul-Jabbar's record. It is the guy is, if you can't sit back and enjoy what you've watched him do, and we got to watch it all, then you've missed out on Denzel Washington, Marlon Brando, Jack. I mean, you missed out on that guy in their profession. That's exactly what you've missed out on. Let me answer this real quick, Grant. Sean, do you think Derek Stingley Jr. can become a top 5 cornerback? I do. As a freshman in that national title game, he might have been the best defensive player on the field. 2 things. DeMeco Ryans will demand another level to him. Got to stay healthy. He's got to stay on the field because skill set, shit. You guys off the charts skill set.
Sean, have a great weekend, my man.
Awesome to talk to you, man. I love it, and I'm looking forward to next week, brother. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye. Good stuff right there with Sean Salisbury. We'll talk some Kings basketball coming up in just a moment, but first I want to tell you that we are brought to you by New Works Plumbing of Sacramento, locally owned for over 20 years. New Works has a fix for you. Just go to sacserviceplumbing.com or call the number on your screen. I also want to spend a moment and tell you about Zoom 180. Do me a favor. Just spend a minute and go to zoom180.com and check out this new revolutionary flashlight. My buddy just received his in the mail yesterday, and the term he used was badass. All right? Zoom180.com. Look at the video. Get your flashlight. 5 LEDs. It's incredible. All right, Ryan in Sacktown. Kings are going to be tipping off here in about 30 minutes. Tyrese Halliburton is going to play for Indiana. No De'Aaron Fox for Sacramento. So here we go with the Kings shorthanded against an Indiana team that has been just awful, but they played pretty well last night in a 1-point loss against the Lakers. But here's the key, Ryan. They did play last night. I'm talking about the Pacers.
Yeah, and it was a draining game for them. Emotional game, back and forth, right up until the end of the game. So the Kings should have the advantage in terms of coming in a little bit more fresh. But don't be fooled by the way the Pacers have been playing lately. They are still a very good team. Halliburton is playing with an exceptional level of confidence right now, coming back off of his injuries. And I think that there's a lot in this game that has a lot of emotion between Sabonis returning and Hallie, Buddy Hield. So you never know how it's going to turn out.
Yeah, and congratulations to De'Aaron and his wife. And that, again, based on what we know and what we don't know, I mean, don't be surprised if he's not with the team in New Orleans too. But I mean, I'm just saying, don't be surprised. I'm not saying he's not playing. I'm just saying, don't be surprised. Obviously, there's a lot of factors here. And the most important thing is he's with his wife for the birth of their child. That's more important. All right. So without De'Aaron Fox, the fact that Indiana played last night, Indiana did not play well when they were in Sacramento earlier in the season, and Halliburton did not have a good game. Damn well this is a big game for him.
It's a huge game for him, especially just coming off being named to the first All-Star team for him. The Kings are going to have to match up with him on defense, and we need Mitchell to really step up and pick up that level of defense that we have not seen. And we need to get Monk off the bench coming up and being big and replacing Fox in those minutes.
This is also a big game for Domantas Sabonis going back to Indiana. So let's not forget that aspect of it, who just was announced to his third All-Star game. All right, so let's get to Fox. I mean, I think you and I are on the same page. I think it's a travesty that he did not make the All-Star team. He'll probably get added on to the All-Star team because of an injury. I know when you and I were talking, maybe it's for Zion Williamson, maybe it's for someone else, but that's not really the same. It's kind of like, it's great, but he should have been put on the team yesterday.
Yeah, it's maybe the same if he comes out and gets the All-Star MVP, right? If you look stat line by stat line, Damian Lillard he scores more more assists per game. He's played less games. But if you look at everything in totality with what De'Aaron's done with the Sacramento Kings team how much that step he's taken, it's just another year for Damian. This has been just that big step for De'Aaron, and this should have been his spot.
And look at what he's done in the fourth quarter. See, that's the other aspect of this. Right. It's like, to me, a quarterback and what he does in the fourth quarter compared to the first quarter. I'm always more impressed with a quarterback stats in the fourth quarter than I am in the first quarter. De'Aaron has been the best player in the league in the fourth quarter, and the Kings have the third best record in the West. That should count for a hell of a lot.
Well, it usually does, right, Grant? I mean, you would see multiple All-Stars off of teams that are 1, 2, 3 in each conference, but it's a little bit different now. We were talking off air, this is a positionless All-Star game. So why are we putting it into a box where it's 2 guards, 3 back court or 3 front court and then 2 wild cards? Just pick the 7 best players. Yep. I mean, because LeBron and Giannis can draft however the hell they want, but it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But either way, De'Aaron's having a hell of a season, and I'm sure it's going to put a big chip on his shoulder.
All right, so tonight, I think another key is the 2 guard. Kevin Huerter has been struggling. Buddy is going to be sky high for this game with Halliburton. And the Pacers, with the absence of Halliburton over the last 3+ weeks, have really slid in the standings. But you have to remember, when Halliburton was healthy, they were one of the top teams in the East. I know they played last night. I think there's going to be a very hard game for the Kings tonight without De'Aaron Fox. I'm not saying they can't win, but what I am saying is I'm still a little nervous about the Kings' lack of consistency lately on offense. This is one of those games where the 3 ball needs to be falling if they're going to beat the Pacers tonight.
Yeah, absolutely, Grant. Last 3 games, they've not shot over 30, or they've shot 30% or under from the 3-point line. The game I would point you to maybe stabilize your confidence there would be the Lakers game when Domas was a late scratch and they kind of rallied around and they were able to pull through. I think the Kings can do that again tonight, especially with Foxy out. It will take some effort. And you know what? Buddy Hield, it's really easy to knock him off his game. get in
Yes, it
his
is.
face,
They did
do
that
a
in
little trash
Sacramento.
talking. They
They knocked him off
absolutely
his
did.
game. The fans got him off kilter in the beginning of that game where he couldn't put the ball in the ocean in that first quarter.
Absolutely did. And so I would do the same. Just get up on him and frustrate the hell out of him. Benedict Mathurin coming off the bench. He's a solid guy for
Yeah.
Cleveland as well. He put up 22 first game in Sacramento. So
Yeah, he was good for the Pacers, huh?
very good, very good.
Yep.
So yeah, it's going to be a tough game, but this is definitely one that's obtainable for the Kings.
Yep. All right. We'll talk to you at halftime, which is not going to be that much longer as the game starts here. I'm looking at the clock. Yeah, the game is going to start here. What is it? 3:40. So it's going to start in 30. They tip it up in exactly 30 minutes from right now, buddy. So I'm going to get ready for Listen App. You and I will be back at halftime and then post-game show, and we'll talk to you then.
Looking forward to it. All right. I'm going to go
All right.
check out my Zoom 180 flashlight right now in the meantime.
Check it out, man. Zoom180.com. It's unfreaking believable. All right. See you.
Have a good one.
All right. It really is, folks. I'll be very honest with you. The guy that invented this flashlight is a friend of mine, and he also is from Roy's Umbrella. That's the same Roy, and I did a lot of commercials for him, and he was unbelievably grateful for the advertising that I did for him, and he's been working on this for a couple of years, full time. And this is an amazing device. All right. It's an amazing flashlight. Price point's a little bit higher than a normal flashlight, but this isn't anything like a normal flashlight. And again, my friend who opened it up yesterday and waited for nighttime used the term to me, this flashlight is badass. And he's got a couple of different homes, and he owns a company and travels a lot. And he said, I'm buying one for each of my properties, and I'm spreading the word. And I'm like, man, thank you very much. Check it out. It's awesome. 5 LEDs. It's very light. It may not look light. It's very, very light. There's nothing like it on the market. It's unbelievable. Zoom 180. All right. Hey, halftime. We're going to be back with you. Kings and Pacers. And then after the game as well, right here on If You Don't Like That. So long, everybody.